I'm going to begin, Will. I mean, you're one of sort of Britain's leading young actors, so I don't want to sort of patronise you in any way, shape or form, but were there ever any times on set where you were thinking, shit, that's Leonardo DiCaprio, that's pretty cool?
You know, it's interesting. I think initially that was certainly my feeling. I think going into the movie, I was nervous, you know, because I was acting opposite an idol of mine, you know, someone I've genuinely admired and followed, you know, throughout their career. I was intimidated and it added to the kind of anxiety that I naturally have of performing. So initially it was working against me, but I found that when I got on set, Leo in particular was so good and so cool, and the challenge of making the movie was so great, and there was so much to do. You know, the experience was so consuming that there wasn't actually time for anxiety. There wasn't actually room for me to have a freak out or really doubt myself too much, and that was quite gratifying.
Because I mean, it looks like it was a horrible set to be on in some regards, because I mean it looked like it was cold and it was muddy, and you kind of just wanted to jump into the screen with a sort of wet wipe and just sort of say, you know. But I mean, were there ever?
I wanted you to jump into the screen with a wet wipe. I got to be honest. Yeah.
Well, it was a very immersive experience, but
right.
Yeah, but I mean, were there ever times when you were just thinking, I really need to sort of go home and just go to bed? I mean, even though experiences like this are kind of unforgettable, it must have been quite. By the end of it, it must have been. You must have felt quite ready to go home, a bit like going to Glastonbury, I guess.
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah. Just more snow than mud, but and no live music. I think for me, this was easily the hardest thing I've ever done, and I think I probably speak for the cast and crew, you know, by saying that everyone felt like this was the hardest thing they'd ever done, and indeed may ever do. There were times where I really, really did want to go home. You know, I can't lie. I never seriously thought about quitting or letting up, but certainly it was very, very tough being away from home in those kind of conditions for that long. But to the same extent, this is a dream come true for an actor like me in my stage of my career. And we also, I think, felt very lucky that we had such a realistic experience as actors. You know, that our job was actually made easier by the fact that there was less to act. You know, we genuinely were cold and we genuinely were exhausted and we genuinely did miss home, you know. So that was very interesting. And then also, you know, to be part of such a unique process that is an Alejandro film, the way in which it's shot and the fact that we used, you know, all natural light and shot all on location. It's just amazing. It's like going back in time and making a movie the way you would have done, you know, 50 years ago.
Because I guess you always get this impression when you're working with esteemed directors like Alejandro that it's going to be very kind of rigid. This is what he wants to do. This is his vision. But I've heard from pretty much everyone who's ever worked with him that he actually gives you so much freedom. Is that the case with him?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way in which the film is shot requires very, very careful, meticulous choreography. So that means that some of your decisions are kind of made for you and you sort of have to wrap your head around them and I suppose give them a reason for being there aside from the fact that it works for camera and we're using natural light, so you have to be in that position and you have to pick up this prop at this particular time and your head turn can't be any greater than that because otherwise you're not seen in the one take that we're doing, you know. Also, you know, as I say, we shot in all natural light, so that meant that there were very specific windows of time per day that we were shooting for. So it was a little bit like doing live theatre. Leo described it as a not funny SNL every day, which I think is quite good. It's like SNL with bears. Yeah. That's the tagline. I'd replace that thing about returned and dead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
SNL with bears.
Yeah. And I mean, you've got War Machine with Brad Pitt coming up as well. I mean, you must be showing off to your friends left, right, and centre at the moment.
No. I actually just finished that. Yeah, I just finished shooting War Machine with Brad Pitt, and yeah, I feel incredibly lucky. I think my friends are just bewildered that I am employed, to be honest, and I have a real job, or sort of a real job. But that was a wonderful experience, and yeah, I was very honoured to represent Marines. You know, that was genuinely a life-changing experience. Actually, I was only shooting for a month, but I had a life-changing experience shooting that film.
Because I mean, that's a Netflix production. I was just wondering. I mean, were you aware of that prior to getting involved in a project? And do you think that does have any bearing on actors such as yourself as to whether you get involved, knowing that where it's going to end up? Is that something that you take into consideration, or is that sort of what goes on in the background?
I think the advent of online media in general was very exciting. Ever since YouTube, really. I think. We've seen some really interesting developments in entertainment and how it's packaged and how it's consumed. I'm excited to be part of a film that is kind of, I suppose, one of the earliest to go onto Netflix, pretty much straight away, but for a very limited release. But for me, the main incentive was the script, to work with David Michaud, to represent, military men, and of course to work with Brad. And I think I would have been involved in that project regardless of how it was going to be exhibited. But no, very exciting that it's being shown on Netflix, and I think Netflix have got some wonderful things in the works.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time.
Brilliant.
Pleasure as
Thank
always.
you, man. Yeah,
Cheers.
good to see you, Stefan. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey,